Viktor Orban, a couple of news items, if you don't mind. Viktor Orban said that you told him that you want to cut funding for Ukraine as soon as you get there. Where's to that effect? He said that in an interview.
Yeah.
Is he correct? Is that the plan?
Well, first of all, he's a fantastic guy, and he's taken in no illegal immigrants. He runs his country very tough, and a lot of people don't like it. But he runs it very tough, and it does very well, and there's no crime. They don't have, when you look at what's happening in our country, where there's crime on every street corner and murder, death all over the place, and it's going to get a lot worse because of the migrants coming in. You know, millions and millions of people coming out of prisons and coming out of mental institutions, and they're all coming in to the United States. We had a great time. We had dinner. We get along very well. But what I told him is Europe is spending a tiny fraction of what we're spending. And the European nations, as a combination, they should be paying the same because, you know, their economy is approximately the same size. If you add them all up, their economy is very close to our economy. Plus, they're in a lot more danger than we are. We have a thing called an ocean between us, right? And they don't. So they're spending, they have $100 billion, probably more than that, less spending on Ukraine than we do. They should be spending money. I had the same thing with NATO. They weren't spending on NATO. I said, you got to spend on NATO. And they did. Once I said it, I said, I won't protect you. I would not protect you if you're not spending, if you're not paid up. But Europe is about $100 billion less in spending in giving money to Ukraine. And I said, that's something that really has to be taken care of. It's not fair to us.
So he was okay in saying what he said?
Well, he was okay. I mean, he gave a very short statement, a sort of statement. I told him, I think it's very unfair to America. It's very unfair to the United States taxpayer. When we're spending all of the money or a majority of the money, Europe should be spending. I call it, you have to equalize. Equalize. They have to equalize what we spent, and they should do that. And they will do that, just like they did with NATO. They will do that if somebody is in there to tell them. But do you think Biden's calling them, saying you have to equalize? I don't think he's ever said that.
One more thing from today's news, TikTok, the Republicans just voted to, Republicans and Democrats just voted to ban it. You don't think they should ban it right now?
Well, I didn't say anything other than you have to look at Facebook. Facebook is the enemy of the people. They did those lockboxes. They spent $500 million. Do you know, if you spent more than $5,600 or whatever the number is, if you spent $100 more, they put you in prison for campaign violations, right? Zuckerberg, or Zuckerbucks, whatever you want to call him, is spending, the number is crazy. He's spending $500 million in the last election, and nothing happens to him. And that money's being passed all over the place, especially on the lockboxes, or so-called lockboxes, because they're not lockboxes. I call them open boxes. And I think that something has to be done with Facebook. And one thing I will say, I don't want Facebook to get bigger because I think Facebook is an equal threat. And that includes with China, because if China wants to know anything about what Facebook knows, they're going to give them the information.
Mr. President, I'm very curious about what it's like for you, your life. You know, no one's gone through what you've gone through. Nobody in human history has really, and I know you have supporters, friends, family. They say it's lonely at the top. And I'm actually curious, is it ever lonely for you? I mean, no one can fully relate to what you've been through and what you're going through. Are you ever lonely?
So over the years, I love history. I study history. And I was always told that Andrew Jackson, as a president, was treated the absolute worst. He was just really lambasted. And I heard Abraham Lincoln was second, but he was in a thing called the Civil War, so you can understand that. But Andrew Jackson was really, really treated badly. In fact, his wife died during the process. I mean, a lot of people say she died because of the way they were treated. I mean, she was heartbroken and broken in so many other ways. And I heard that for years. And I look now, even last night I was saying it, I said, I don't care, Andrew Jackson or anybody else, nobody has, when you think of the fake things, nobody's been treated like Trump in terms of badly. Russia, Ukraine, everything was a scam. And it literally starts the new one. As you win one, you start the other. Impeachment hoax number one, impeachment hoax number two, all hoaxes and scams. And I said, if they ever devoted their time to making America great again, it would be a lot easier. Some people say, sir, how do you get out of bed in the morning? It's a war. We're fighting some very bad people, some very evil people. And it's a war. And it's a war that we're winning. You know, when I looked at the numbers last night, we had tremendous numbers. You had tremendous. Other candidates are, as you know, other candidates are left, even if they're no longer on, if they quit, if they gave up, or whatever form of leaving they wanted to take. Those numbers were incredible numbers, and the numbers of people that voted were incredible numbers. There's never been spirit, in my opinion, for an election of an American president like there is right now. And I think you add on the fact that they love my policies, they like me, they have to like me, they're not going to vote otherwise, but they see how bad, how pathetic Biden's been. He's the worst president in the history of our country. He's corrupt, he's incompetent, he's weaponized the justice system to go after his political opponent, which has never been done before. And he's the worst president we've ever had. He's not respected at all in foreign. Look, you wouldn't have Russia attacking Ukraine. You wouldn't have Israel being attacked. Iran was broke when I was president. They were broke because of me. Let's say they were broke. And they didn't have the money to give to Hamas or Hezbollah. All of these things, you wouldn't have inflation because it was caused by energy. All of these things were things that were very preventable, not preventable by him. And the problem we have 7 months to go, a little more than 7 months to go. That's an eternity when you have incompetent people running the government.
The cases against you in different ways are disintegrating. You see what's going on with Fannie, and Jack Smith keeps on losing on these emotions. Yeah. These cases were designed to destroy you.
Yes.
And they've helped you. And some of us actually, we see, I know my audience and me too, we see that you're protected, maybe even by the hand of God. Has that ever crossed your mind? I mean, the idea that these indictments could have been a benefit to you politically, it's almost it was inconceivable a year ago. Now look at where you are.
Well, I've watched people over the years, politicians get indicted, and the first thing they do is go to the microphone and say, I'll be leaving office now, and I will fight for my name and my reputation, and I'll be going back home to my family. You know, they leave for a lot of different reasons, but nobody's ever been hit like me. And there's never been anything like this. Look, my numbers are highest. Nobody's ever seen numbers like this. I believe that if this didn't happen, perhaps they miscalculated, and perhaps they haven't. Because don't forget, it's not over yet. But there is some kind of a protective force, because you look at what I've been hit with. These are horrible people. These are corrupt. You know, Jack Smith, I call him deranged Jack Smith. This guy is out to murder. Here's Joe Biden with 50 times the number of documents, classified stuff. He took it all for a 50-year period. And don't forget, they can blame his mental health. And I agree with them on his mental health. His mental health is terrible. But they can blame his mental health. But 20 years ago and 10 years ago and 30 years ago and 40 and 50 years ago, he didn't have, let's say, a mental health problem like they talk about today. So they release him from liability. And you're talking about many, many times the documents over many years. And he didn't have the Presidential Records Act. He didn't have it, you know, which totally protects me, in my opinion, totally protects me. You know, I was dealing with them. We were dealing fine. We weren't. And then all of a sudden they raided this house. They raided Mar-a-Lago. These are corrupt people. But they release Biden. What Biden did, he wasn't protected by the presidential right because he wasn't president. He took him when he was a senator. Dick Durbin got up and said, if he did that, that's a real bad thing. That's as bad as it gets. Dick Durbin's on their side. And I just remember when he heard about that, he took a lot of classified documents as a senator. Dick Durbin couldn't believe it. So when you look at it, there's something going on, because they're going after me viciously. Then all of a sudden it comes out that Biden took 10 times the number of documents that I did. And I took them very legally, and I wasn't hiding them. We had boxes on the front of and a lot of those boxes had clothing, and we're moving out, okay? Unfortunately, we're moving out of the White House. And because we're moving out of the White House, our country's going to hell. But we weren't hiding anything. He was. And then you see him with his Corvette. Nobody ever mentions the one, though, that's the worst, is he had him in Chinatown. And those were boxes that were used. If you take a look at those boxes were, there was a lot of activity in those boxes. They show pictures of them. These were boxes that were used. In Mar-a-Lago, we had the Secret Service. We had all sorts of security. We had everything. And what he did was far more egregious. I mean, what I did, I had protection. I had the right to do it, in my opinion, and in my lawyer's opinion and everything else. But when you see that the way they released him, and they say, we're going to release him, it was egregious what he did. But by the way, they released Hillary Clinton. She hammered her phones. she used all sorts of acid testing and everything else. They call it bleach pit, but it's essentially acid that will destroy everything, within 10 miles. I mean, what she did was unbelievable. Nothing happens to her. Nothing happens to Bill Clinton. He took it out in his socks. It was the famous socks case, which he actually ended up winning. So when I look at this, Greg, I say, there's got to be something. It was very interesting when they were going after me viciously, raiding my house, everything else, because Jack Smith is an animal. He's a total animal. He's deranged. He really is. He's a deranged person. The other gentleman who went after Biden, it was a weird kind of a conclusion, because he said, he's competent to be president, but he's not competent to stand trial. That's sort of a strange thing. I don't think people are going to buy that very much, because certainly it'll be used during the campaign.
Very curious. You're a tough person, obviously, but you have experienced loss like anybody else.
Yeah.
You lost your brother over the past couple of years, your sister, your late wife, Ivana. How do you grieve? Because you were like right back at work. You had to be. And it's hard to conceive somebody like you shedding tears. And I'm curious, did it happen then? Has it happened?
So I don't like to do it. When you lose somebody, it's very tough. I lost my mother-in-law very recently. She was a great woman. She was very beautiful woman, inside and out, and she died. And I will tell you, it's a tough thing. I don't like to show that. I don't like to see it.
But you have.
A lot of people, sure you do. I mean, you do when you lose somebody that you really love. My sister, my brother, when you lose your parents. It's a very tough thing, and I find nothing wrong with it. But I don't like to do it in public. Now I have to tell you something. Sometimes I don't think you can really help it, and that's okay too. I think that's okay too. But grieving is grieving. When you lose somebody that's very close, in many ways, if you don't grieve, perhaps you're not such a good person.